My name is Serafina, and 3 weeks ago I discovered my mother had been living a lie that destroyed my entire world. The house my grandmother left me in her will gone, sold to my golden child brother Marcus for $1 while I was deployed overseas. But here's the thing about family betrayal. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones sharpening the knife for your back. When my lawyer called with those 48 hours, everything changed forever. Before we dive into this family revenge story that will leave you questioning everything you know about blood loyalty, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. Hit that like button if family drama gets your attention, and subscribe because this tale of justice served cold will have you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, you will want to see how this ends. Coming home from my second deployment in Afghanistan should have been a celebration. Instead, it became the beginning of my worst nightmare. I had served my country for 6 years, sending most of my pay home to help with family expenses, never questioning where it went. My grandmother Eleanor had always been my anchor, the one person who saw my potential when everyone else saw my flaws. When Grandma Eleanor passed away 2 years ago, I was stationed overseas and could not attend the funeral. The grief hit me like a freight train, but her lawyer assured me over a crackling international call that her affairs were in order. She had left me her beautiful Victorian home in Portland, the house where I spent every summer of my childhood learning to bake her famous apple pies and listening to her stories about women who fought for what was right. That house represented everything I had worked toward. It was going to be my fresh start, my anchor after years of military life. I planned to renovate it, maybe start a small business, create the life Grandma Eleanor always said I deserved. For 2 years, I dreamed about those hardwood floors, the wraparound porch, the garden where we planted sunflowers every spring. But when I drove down Maple Street last month, expecting to see my inheritance, I found my brother Marcus loading boxes into a moving truck. My heart stopped. This had to be some mistake. Marcus lived in Seattle with his wife Jennifer and their twin daughters. What was he doing at Grandma Eleanor's house? Marcus. I called out, jogging across the lawn. I remembered mowing as a teenager. What are you doing here? The look on his face told me everything before he said a single word. Guilt, panic, and something else. Defiance. He straightened his shoulders and crossed his arms, suddenly looking exactly like our father when he was about to justify something terrible. Sarah, you are back early. Mom said you were not coming until next month. I got leave approved sooner than expected, but what are you doing here? This is my house now. Marcus laughed, but it was harsh and bitter. Your house, Sarah. This has been my house for over a year now. Mom handled all the paperwork after Grandma died. You were deployed, remember? Someone had to take responsibility. My blood turned to ice. What paperwork? The will was clear. Grandma left this house to me specifically. Things changed, little sister. Mom had power of attorney. She made sure the house went to someone who could actually take care of it, not someone gallivanting around the world playing soldier. That phrase, playing soldier, hit me like a physical blow. I had risked my life serving my country, missing birthdays and holidays and funerals, while Marcus had stayed home building his comfortable life. And now he was dismissing my service like it was a hobby. Show me the paperwork, I demanded, my military training kicking in. When facing a problem, gather intelligence first. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Mom has all that legal stuff. You should talk to her. I drove to my childhood home with shaking hands, my mind racing. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Grandma had changed her will before she died. Maybe I had misunderstood something. But deep in my gut, I knew something was very wrong. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked in the same kitchen where she used to make elaborate birthday dinners for Marcus while I got cupcakes from the grocery store. She looked up from her crossword puzzle with that practiced smile she wore when she was about to deliver bad news disguised as good news. Serafina, honey, you are home. Marcus said you might stop by. Mom, I need to see the paperwork for Grandma's house. Marcus says you handled everything. Her smile faltered for just a second, but she recovered quickly. Oh, sweetheart, that old house was such a burden. Your grandmother left so many debts, and you were overseas with no way to handle the responsibilities. I had to make some hard decisions to protect the family. What kind of decisions? Well, Marcus needed a bigger place for the girls, and he was in a position to take over the mortgage payments and handle all the maintenance. It just made sense. My hands clenched into fists. Made sense to whom that house was left to me in the will. I saw the documents before I deployed. Mom sighed dramatically like I was being unreasonable. Sarah, you have to understand. You were never here. You chose the military over family, missed every important event for years. How could you possibly maintain a property from thousands of miles away? The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. According to her twisted logic, my service to my country somehow made me unworthy of my inheritance. But there was something else in her tone. Evasiveness. She was hiding something big. I want to see the legal paperwork. Now. I do not have it here. Marcus's lawyer handled everything. That night, I called the lawyer who had originally read Grandma Eleanor's will. Mr. Peterson was elderly but sharp, and he remembered me clearly. Miss Serafina, I am so sorry for your loss, he said warmly. Your grandmother spoke about you often. She was incredibly proud of your service. Mr. Peterson, I need to understand what happened with the house. My family says there were complications. There was a long pause. Miss, I think you should come to my office tomorrow morning. Bring identification and your military records. We need to have a serious conversation. I barely slept that night. Every instinct honed by years of military training was screaming that I had walked into an ambush. But this was not a foreign battlefield. This was my own family. Mr. Peterson's office smelled like old books and coffee, the kind of place where serious business happened quietly. He was a small man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. But when I sat down across from his massive oak desk, his expression was grave. Miss Serafina, I want you to know that your grandmother's will was absolutely clear and legally sound. She left you that house specifically because she believed you had earned it through your sacrifice and service. She talked about you constantly, how proud she was, how worried she was that your family did not appreciate what you were doing for your country. My throat tightened. Grandma Eleanor had always been the one person who understood me. Then how did Marcus end up with it? Mr. Peterson pulled out a thick file folder. This is where things get very complicated and, frankly, very concerning. After your grandmother passed, I sent all the proper documentation to your mother as the executor of the estate. The will was filed with the probate court. Everything was legitimate and above board. He opened the folder and spread out several documents. However, 6 months later, I received a call from a different law firm claiming they were handling a property transfer for the same address. When I investigated, I discovered that your mother had filed paperwork claiming the will was invalid due to your grandmother's diminished mental capacity at the time she wrote it. My heart started racing. But that is impossible. I talked to Grandma Eleanor regularly before she died. She was sharp as ever. Exactly, which is why I was so concerned. The new will they filed was supposedly written 3 weeks before her death, leaving everything to your mother instead of you. But Miss Serafina, I was your grandmother's lawyer for 30 years. I knew her handwriting, her mannerisms, her way of thinking. That document was suspicious. He slid a paper toward me. This is the will they filed to replace your grandmother's real will. I stared at the document in disbelief. It was clearly a forgery, but an expert one. Someone had gone to considerable trouble to replicate Grandma Eleanor's signature and writing style. But there were tiny inconsistencies. Words she never would have used, phrases that sounded like my mother's voice rather than my grandmother's. Mr. Peterson, why did not you fight this? Why did not you contact me? his face clouded with regret. "I tried, miss. I called the number I had for you, but it was disconnected. I sent letters to your last known military address, but they came back undelivered. I even tried to contact you through military channels, but I was told you were on a classified assignment and could not be reached." The pieces started falling into place. Mom had changed my contact information with everyone who mattered, ensuring I would be isolated when she executed her plan. She had used my deployment and military service, the very thing I was most proud of, as a weapon against me. What happened next? Your mother, as the new heir according to the forged will, immediately sold the property to your brother for $1. A clear family transfer to avoid taxes and keep everything quiet. By the time I realized what was happening, the deed had already been transferred and recorded. I felt like I was drowning. My own mother had forged legal documents to steal my inheritance, then manipulated the system to make it look legitimate. She had not just betrayed me, she had committed multiple felonies. "Mr. Peterson, what can we do?" He leaned forward, and for the first time since I had arrived, he smiled. "Miss Serafina, I want you to know that I never stopped investigating this case. I suspected fraud from the beginning, but I needed proof. Over the past year, I have been building a case." He pulled out another folder much thicker than the first. "I hired a handwriting expert who confirmed the will was forged. I found the real estate agent who handled the sale. She was suspicious about the $1 transaction and kept detailed notes. I even tracked down your grandmother's doctor who confirmed she was mentally sharp right up until her death." My hands were shaking as I processed what he was telling me. "So we can prove fraud. We can prove multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Your mother, your brother, and possibly others committed serious felonies to steal your inheritance. But miss, I need you to understand something important. This will not be easy. Your family will fight back hard when we expose them. Are you prepared for that war?" I thought about Grandma Eleanor, about all the summers we spent together, about her stories of women who stood up for themselves when the world tried to crush them. I thought about my fellow soldiers who had died fighting for justice in foreign lands, while my own family was stealing from me at home. "Mr. Peterson, I did not survive 2 combat deployments to let my family destroy me with paperwork. What do we do first?" He smiled wider. "First, we file a formal complaint with the district attorney's office. Forging wills is a felony that carries serious prison time. Second, we file a civil lawsuit to recover your property and damages. Third, we send your family a very specific message." "What kind of message?" "I am going to call your mother this afternoon and inform her that we have evidence of felony fraud and forgery. I am going to give her exactly 48 hours to begin the process of returning your property voluntarily before we file criminal charges that could send her to prison for up to 20 years. The satisfaction I felt was immediate and overwhelming. After years of being dismissed, ignored, and treated like a second-class family member, I finally had real power. "What do you think she will do?" Mr. Peterson's expression turned grim. "Honestly, I think she will panic and try to cover her tracks. She might try to destroy evidence or pressure Marcus to transfer the property back quickly to avoid prosecution. But, Miss Serafina, I also think she will try to manipulate you emotionally. She will probably claim this is all a misunderstanding, that she was protecting you, that family should stick together. That will not work anymore." "Good, because in my experience, people who commit this kind of betrayal within families are counting on their victims being too loyal or too guilty to fight back. They use love as a weapon, but you served your country with honor. You know the difference between loyalty and enabling criminal behavior." As I left Mr. Peterson's office that afternoon, I felt something I had not experienced in months: hope. Not just hope for getting my house back, but hope for something bigger. Justice. Vindication. Proof that I was not the family disappointment they had always painted me as. But I also felt something else. A cold, calculating anger that reminded me of how I felt before a dangerous mission. My family had declared war on me without me even knowing a battle was happening. They had used my service, my absence, my love for them as weapons against me. Now it was time to show them what a real soldier could do when someone threatened what she cared about most. The call came at exactly 3:47 p.m. the next day. I was sitting in my hotel room reviewing the legal documents Mr. Peterson had given me when my phone rang with Mom's contact photo, a picture from my high school graduation where she was smiling proudly. The irony was not lost on me. "Serafina, we need to talk. Right now." Her voice was different than I had ever heard it, high-pitched, almost frantic. The controlled manipulation from our kitchen conversation was gone, replaced by something that sounded like genuine fear. "I am listening, Mom. That lawyer of yours called me with some very serious accusations. He is claiming I did something illegal with Grandma's will, which is completely ridiculous. I handled everything properly to protect this family." I stayed silent, letting her fill the uncomfortable pause. One of the first things they taught us in military intelligence was that guilty people could not tolerate silence. They would always reveal more than they intended if you just waited. "Sarah, honey, you have to understand the position I was in. You were deployed, unreachable. The house was sitting empty, deteriorating. Marcus and Jennifer needed more space for the girls. It made perfect sense to keep everything in the family." "By forging Grandma's will?" The silence stretched so long I thought she might have hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold and sharp, the tone she used when Marcus and I were children and she was about to deliver punishment. "I did not forge anything. I found some old documents that showed Grandma had changed her mind about leaving you the house. You were never around Sarah. You chose the military over family repeatedly. Why should you inherit something you could not even be bothered to visit?" The gaslighting was breathtaking in its audacity. She was trying to make me question my own memories, my own experiences, my own worth. But military training had taught me to trust documentation over emotion, evidence over manipulation. "Mom, we have handwriting experts. We have medical records. We have proof." Another long pause. When she spoke again, the mask had completely dropped. "You ungrateful little bitch! Do you have any idea what I sacrificed raising you? Do you know how much money and time and energy I poured into you just to watch you run off and play soldier the first chance you got? Marcus stayed. Marcus contributed to this family. Marcus deserved that house more than you ever did." The venom in her voice was shocking, but also liberating. Finally, she was telling the truth about how she really felt about me. Years of subtle favoritism, dismissive comments, and emotional manipulation suddenly made perfect sense. "You have 48 hours to start the process of transferring the house back to me or Mr. Peterson files criminal charges," I said calmly. "Your choice. You would send your own mother to prison over a house. You would steal from your own daughter while she was serving her country over favoritism for your son." She hung up without another word. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing with text messages. First Marcus, then his wife Jennifer, then my Aunt Patricia, then my cousin David. The family phone tree was activated, and I was being bombarded with variations of the same message. How could I be so selfish? How could I tear the family apart? How could I put legal technicalities over family loyalty? But buried in the barrage of guilt-tripping messages was something interesting. My cousin David's text was different. "Sarah, call me when you can. There are things you need to know about what really happened. Things that go deeper than just the house." I had always liked David. He was Marcus's age, but had never bought into the family dynamics that painted Marcus as the golden child and me as the problematic one. He was a forensic accountant, methodical and careful, someone who dealt in facts rather than emotions. When I called him that evening, His first words were, "Are you somewhere private where we can talk freely?" "Yes." "David, what is going on?" "Sarah, I have been waiting 2 years for you to come home and discover what they did. I tried to find a way to contact you, but Mom said you had specifically asked not to be bothered with family business while deployed." Another lie. The web of deception was much wider than I had realized. "David, what do you know?" "Everything. I know about the forged will. I know about the fraudulent property transfer. But Sarah, that is just the beginning. Your mother has been stealing from you in ways you cannot even imagine." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean? Remember all that money you sent home during your deployments? The money you said was for family emergencies and helping with expenses." "Of course. I sent almost $60,000 over 4 years. None of that money went to family expenses, Sarah. Your mother opened a separate account that you did not know about. She deposited your checks there, then used the money to pay for Marcus's wedding, the down payment on his first house, his kids' private school tuition, and a luxury vacation to Europe for her and Marcus's family." The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I actually felt dizzy. While I was eating military rations and sleeping in barracks overseas, my mother was using my deployment pay to fund a lavish lifestyle for my brother's family. "David, how do you know all this?" "Because she asked me to help her set up the accounts. She told me you had agreed to support Marcus since you did not have your own family expenses. I believed her at first, but when I saw the amounts and the way she was spending the money, I started asking questions." "What kind of questions?" Why Marcus needed help when he had a good job. Why the expenses were for luxury items instead of necessities. Why everything was being kept so secretive. When I pressed her about it, she got defensive and told me it was none of my business. That is when I started keeping my own records. This was bigger than I had imagined. This was not just inheritance fraud. This was years of systematic financial theft that had funded my brother's entire adult lifestyle. "David, do you have documentation of all this?" "I have everything, Sarah. Bank records, deposit slips, expense reports. I have been building a file because I knew someday you would come home and discover what they did. I could not be part of their lies anymore." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was not fighting this battle alone. David was offering to be more than just a source of information. He was offering to be an ally. "Why are you willing to help me? This is going to tear the family apart." David's laugh was bitter. "Sarah, the family was already torn apart. It was torn apart the day your mother decided Marcus was worth more than you. It was torn apart every time they spent your money on things you could never afford. It was torn apart when they forged legal documents to steal your inheritance while you were risking your life for your country." His anger was righteous and focused exactly what I needed. Someone who understood that loyalty did not mean enabling criminal behavior. "What do you think we should do?" "I think we should destroy them legally and financially. Not out of revenge, but out of justice. Because if we do not stop them now, they will keep doing this to other people. Your mother has gotten away with manipulation and theft for so long that she thinks she is untouchable." That evening, David came to my hotel room with 3 large binders full of documentation. Financial records, email printouts, even photographs of Marcus's family enjoying vacations and luxury items that my deployment money had purchased. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. But as we organized the documents, David told me something that changed everything. "Sarah, there is one more thing you need to know. Your Aunt Patricia and her husband know about all of this. They have known from the beginning." My heart sank. Aunt Patricia had always been like a second mother to me, the one who sent care packages during my deployments, who remembered my birthday when my own mother forgot. "Are you sure?" David nodded grimly. "Patricia helped your mother research how to forge the will documents. Her husband, Robert, provided the legal advice about how to make the property transfer look legitimate. They are not innocent bystanders, Sarah. They are co-conspirators. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. This was not just my immediate family. This was a coordinated effort involving multiple relatives, all designed to ensure I never received what my grandmother had intended for me. But as devastating as this revelation was, it also clarified something important. This was not about family loyalty anymore. This was about a criminal conspiracy that needed to be exposed and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. David, are you prepared for what happens when we take all this to the authorities? They are going to come after you too. They will say you are a traitor, that you are destroying the family. David looked at me with the kind of steady determination I recognized from my fellow soldiers. Sarah, I have been complicit in their lies for 2 years by staying silent. I am done being complicit. Whatever they do to me, I deserve it. But what they did to you, that was unforgivable. And I am going to help you make sure they face consequences for every single crime they committed. As we worked late into the night, organizing evidence and planning our next moves, I realized that sometimes your real family is not the people who share your blood. It is the people who stand up for what is right when everything is falling apart. Tomorrow, we would take our evidence to the district attorney. Tomorrow, the war would begin in earnest. But tonight, for the first time since coming home, I felt like I had a real chance of winning. The next morning, David and I met with District Attorney Sarah Martinez, a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in white-collar crime. Her office was filled with case files and legal books, but she gave us her complete attention as we laid out our evidence across her conference table. "This is extensive," she said, examining the bank records and forged documents. "Mr. David, you understand that by providing this information, you are essentially confessing to being an accessory to financial fraud." David nodded steadily. "I understand, and I am prepared to face whatever consequences are appropriate, but I want to see justice served for what they did to my cousin." D.A. Martinez spent 2 hours reviewing our documentation. When she finished, her expression was grim but determined. "Miss Serafina, this is one of the most comprehensive family fraud cases I have seen. We are talking about multiple felonies across several years. I am prepared to move forward immediately." Relief flooded through me. Finally, someone with real authority was taking this seriously. "What happens next?" "We will file criminal charges against your mother for fraud, forgery, and grand theft. Your brother will face charges as an accessory and for receiving stolen property. Based on this evidence, I expect we will also be investigating your aunt and uncle." David and I left the DA's office feeling victorious. We had done it. We had built an airtight case that would finally hold my family accountable for their crimes. Justice was coming. But that afternoon, everything fell apart. David called me at 4 p.m., and I could hear the panic in his voice immediately. "Sarah, we have a problem. A big problem." "What happened?" "Your mother showed up at my office an hour ago with a lawyer. They had documents, Sarah. Financial records that I never saw before." My heart started racing. "What kind of documents?" "Bank statements showing that you authorized all those transfers. Email communications that look like they came from you, giving permission for your mother to use your deployment money however she thought best. Power of attorney documents with your signature." The room started spinning. "David, I never signed anything like that. I never gave her permission to steal my money." "I know that, and you know that, but Sarah, the documents look real. They brought a handwriting expert who swore the signatures were authentic. They have dates, transaction numbers, everything that would hold up in court." I sank onto my hotel bed, trying to process what this meant. "David, they are obviously forged just like Grandma's will." "That is what I thought too, but then they showed me something else." His voice broke, and I knew whatever came next would destroy me. What, David? They have photographs of me taking money from your mother. Cash payments that she claimed were for helping her manage your finances while you were deployed. Sarah, I swear to you, I thought that money was reimbursement for expenses I had covered for the family. But in the photos, it looks like I was being paid to help her steal from you. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Even if David had been innocent, the evidence would make him look like a co-conspirator. His credibility as a witness was destroyed. David, we can fight this. We can prove the documents are forged. It gets worse, Sarah. Much worse. I closed my eyes, bracing myself. They have security camera footage from my office building showing me copying financial documents and meeting with people they claim are your military contacts. They are saying I was the one who helped coordinate keeping you isolated overseas so you would not discover the theft. My world crumbled. Not only was David's testimony worthless now, but they had somehow manufactured evidence that made him look like the mastermind behind the entire conspiracy. David, please tell me you are not falling for this. Sarah, I do not know what to believe anymore. Some of those documents, I remember signing things, but I thought they were for legitimate family business. What if I was more involved than I realized? What if your mother manipulated me so completely that I actually did help her steal from you? The doubt in his voice was devastating. They had gotten to him, made him question his own memories and motivations. My strongest ally was crumbling under the weight of manufactured evidence. David, you have to trust what you know to be true. But what if what I know to be true is wrong, Sarah? What if I am the reason you lost everything? That evening, I met with Mr. Peterson to assess the damage. His usually optimistic demeanor was subdued as he reviewed the new evidence David's family had produced. Miss Serafina, I have to be honest with you. These documents are very sophisticated. If they are forgeries, they are the work of professionals. It could take months or even years to prove they are fake, and by then the criminal case against your family would likely be dismissed. What about David's testimony? David is no longer a credible witness. In fact, if this evidence is accepted by the court, he could face serious criminal charges himself. The DA might offer him immunity in exchange for testifying against you, claiming that you were actually the one orchestrating this entire scheme. The irony was breathtaking. Somehow my family had managed to flip the narrative so completely that I, the victim, could end up being prosecuted as the criminal mastermind. Mr. Peterson, how is this possible? How could they have prepared such elaborate fake evidence so quickly? His expression darkened. Miss, I suspect they have been preparing for this possibility for much longer than we realized. This level of documentation and coordination suggests they knew someday you might challenge them, and they have been building a defense strategy for months or even years. That night, I sat in my hotel room staring at my phone, watching text messages pour in from David. Apologies mixed with self-doubt, pleas for forgiveness, mixed with growing suspicion that maybe I had somehow manipulated him too. They had not just stolen my inheritance and my money. They had stolen my only ally and turned him into another weapon against me. I had survived combat zones, had faced enemy fire, and improvised explosives had led soldiers through impossible situations. But I had never felt as alone and defeated as I did that night, realizing that my family's capacity for betrayal was deeper and more sophisticated than I had ever imagined. The 48-hour deadline Mr. Peterson had given them was approaching, but instead of surrendering, they had escalated the war. They were not just defending themselves anymore, they were actively trying to destroy me. As I tried to sleep that night, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. Maybe I should have just accepted the loss and tried to rebuild my life somewhere else. Maybe fighting them had only given them the opportunity to hurt me even worse. But somewhere in the darkness, I heard Grandma Eleanor's voice from one of her old stories. The hardest battles are the ones where you cannot tell who the enemy really is, But justice does not depend on how many people stand with you. It depends on whether you are fighting for what is right. Tomorrow, I would have to figure out how to continue this war without David, without trust, and without any certainty about who was telling the truth. But I was not ready to surrender yet. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing with an unknown number. The voice on the other end was elderly but sharp, with a slight southern accent. Miss Serafina, this is Margaret Williams. I was your grandmother Eleanor's next-door neighbor for 37 years. I need to see you immediately. It is about your grandmother and what really happened before she died. An hour later, I sat in Margaret's living room, surrounded by photo albums and boxes of documents. Margaret was in her 80s, with silver hair and keen blue eyes that missed nothing. She had the same steel in her voice that Grandma Eleanor had possessed. Your grandmother was my dearest friend, Margaret began. We talked every day for decades. She told me everything about her family, including her growing concerns about your mother's behavior toward you. What kind of concerns? Margaret opened one of the photo albums to a page filled with pictures of Grandma Eleanor and me from my childhood visits. Eleanor was heartbroken by the way your mother treated you compared to Marcus. She saw the favoritism, the emotional manipulation, the way your military service was dismissed instead of celebrated. She turned to another page showing newspaper clippings about my military achievements that Grandma Eleanor had carefully preserved. Your grandmother was so proud of you, dear. She kept every article about your unit, every award ceremony photo. She used to say you were the strongest person in the family because you had chosen to serve something bigger than yourself. Tears filled my eyes. I had never known Grandma Eleanor had kept track of my military career so carefully. Margaret, Mr. Peterson said you might have information about what happened before she died. Margaret's expression hardened. 3 months before your grandmother passed, your mother started visiting her much more frequently. At first, Eleanor was pleased. She thought maybe your mother was finally making an effort to repair their relationship. But something changed. Everything changed. Your mother began bringing documents for Eleanor to sign, claiming they were routine estate planning updates. Eleanor started asking me questions about legal terms she did not understand. She was worried that something was not right, but your mother kept pressuring her, saying it was urgent. Margaret pulled out a small notebook with Grandma Eleanor's careful handwriting. 2 weeks before she died, Eleanor gave me this. She said if anything happened to her, I should make sure you got it. I opened the notebook with trembling hands. The pages were filled with Grandma Eleanor's observations about Mom's visits, including dates, times, and disturbing details about pressure tactics and manipulation. January 15th. Sarah came again today with more papers. She says I need to sign them for tax purposes, but when I asked to read them carefully, she became impatient and said there was no time. I told her I wanted to call my lawyer first. She became very angry. January 20th. Sarah brought Marcus with her today. They both insisted I sign documents immediately. Marcus said if I did not trust them to handle my affairs, maybe I was not mentally competent anymore. The threat was clear. I am frightened of my own daughter. January 25th. I tried to call Mr. Peterson, but Sarah has been intercepting my phone calls. She says she is protecting me from people trying to take advantage of me, but I think she is the one I need protection from. The final entry was dated just 3 days before Grandma Eleanor's death. I am going to hide this notebook where Sarah cannot find it. If something happens to me, I pray someone will discover the truth about what she has been doing. Serafina deserves to inherit this house, and I will not let Sarah steal her future the way she has stolen so much else. I could barely breathe as I read my grandmother's words. She had known exactly what Mom was doing, but had been too frightened and isolated to stop it. Margaret, this proves everything. This shows Mom was coercing her before she died. There is more, dear. Margaret pulled out a manila envelope. Your grandmother asked me to keep these safe, the original documents she signed when she first wrote her will leaving you the house. She was afraid your mother would try to destroy them. Inside the envelope were pristine copies of the real will along with medical records showing Grandma Eleanor's mental competency right up until her death. But there was something else. A letter addressed to me in Grandma Eleanor's handwriting. "My dear Serafina," it began. "If you are reading this, it means my fears about your mother were justified. I want you to know that every choice I made about my estate was deliberate and based on love. You have always been the granddaughter who chose honor over convenience, service over comfort. You deserve this house not because of blood, but because of character." The letter continued with specific details about Mom's manipulation tactics and a warning that she would likely try to forge documents after Grandma Eleanor's death. "I have given Margaret evidence that should protect you, but I fear your mother's capacity for deception runs deeper than I ever imagined. Trust Mr. Peterson. Trust yourself. And remember that sometimes the family that matters most is the one you choose, not the one you are born into." As I finished reading, Margaret said quietly, "There is one more thing, dear. I have been in contact with someone else who wants to help you." Before I could ask who the doorbell rang, Margaret opened it to reveal a woman in her 50s wearing a business suit and carrying a briefcase. "Serafina, I would like you to meet Detective Lisa Chen with the Financial Crimes Unit. She has been investigating similar cases of elder abuse and inheritance fraud." Detective Chen sat down across from me with the confidence of someone who had seen every possible variation of family betrayal. "Miss Serafina, Mrs. Williams contacted me yesterday after hearing about your situation. What your family did to you is part of a much larger pattern of inheritance theft that targets military families specifically." "What do you mean?" "Criminals know that deployed military personnel are vulnerable to family financial fraud because they are unreachable for long periods and their families control their mail and communications. Your mother is not the first person to use military deployment as an opportunity to steal from their own children." Detective Chen opened her briefcase and pulled out several thick files. "We have been building cases against a network of lawyers, accountants, and family members who specialize in this type of fraud. The forged documents your family produced yesterday, we have seen identical formatting and language in at least 6 other cases." My heart started racing. "Are you saying this is bigger than just my family?" "Much bigger. Your mother did not develop this scheme on her own. She had professional help from people who make a living stealing from military families. The good news is that we have been tracking this network for 2 years, and your case might be the key to bringing down the entire operation." Detective Chen pulled out photographs of documents that looked exactly like the ones David's family had presented to discredit our case. "These are forgeries created by a criminal organization based in Portland. They specialize in creating fake financial records that can fool most courts. But we have identified the specific software they use, the printers, even the paper suppliers. We can prove these documents are fake." For the first time in days, I felt hope returning. Not just hope for my own case, but hope that other military families might be protected from this kind of betrayal. "Detective Chen, what do you need from me?" "I need you to keep fighting Miss Serafina. I need you to let us use your case as the centerpiece of a much larger investigation that could save other families from going through what you experienced." Margaret reached over and squeezed my hand. "Your grandmother would be so proud, dear. You are not just fighting for yourself anymore. You are fighting for justice." As we planned our next moves, I realized that David's betrayal, as painful as it was, had led me to something much more powerful. A network of people committed to exposing this type of crime and a detective with the resources to prove what I could never prove alone. Sometimes, when you think you have lost everything the universe provides, exactly what you need to not just survive, but to win completely. The final confrontation happened exactly 1 week later in the federal courthouse downtown. What had started as a family dispute over inheritance had become a major criminal case involving multiple agencies and dozens of victims. Detective Chen had moved quickly once she had our evidence. The criminal network that had helped my family forge documents was much larger than anyone had imagined. They had been targeting military families across 3 states, stealing millions of dollars through elaborate inheritance fraud schemes. The courtroom was packed as federal prosecutors laid out their case. Mom sat at the defendant's table with Marcus' Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert. Their confident smugness from a week ago had been replaced by the pale, hollow-eyed look of people who finally understood the magnitude of their crimes. David had been granted immunity in exchange for his testimony about how the criminal network operated. He had been manipulated just as much as I had, and his cooperation was helping prosecutors understand exactly how sophisticated this operation was. But the star witness was Margaret Williams. At 82 years old, she took the stand with the dignity and strength that reminded me so much of Grandma Eleanor. She presented my grandmother's notebook, the hidden documents, and her own detailed observations about Mom's coercive behavior. Eleanor was terrified in her final weeks, Margaret testified. She knew her daughter was trying to steal from Serafina, but she felt trapped and helpless. She died believing she had failed to protect her granddaughter from this betrayal. The prosecutor then called their handwriting expert, who had analyzed the forged documents with equipment that had not been available when Mom first executed her scheme. The analysis was devastating. Not only were the documents fake, but they could be traced to specific equipment and software used by the criminal network. When my turn came to testify, I looked directly at Mom as I described what it felt like to discover that my own family had stolen my inheritance while I was serving my country overseas. I talked about the money I had sent home in good faith, believing I was helping family members who needed support. My mother taught me that family loyalty was sacred, I said, but she never taught me that loyalty should be a one-way street or that serving your country should make you a target for theft by the people who are supposed to love you most. Mom's lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive daughter who was twisting a simple misunderstanding into a criminal case. But when the prosecutor presented evidence of the systematic financial theft, the forged documents, and the criminal network, that narrative collapsed completely. The most damning evidence came from Detective Chen's investigation into the criminal organization. They had found emails between Mom and the document forgers discussing specific strategies for targeting military families, including recommendations for isolating victims overseas and timing fraud schemes around deployment schedules. Mrs. Sarah was not just a client of this criminal network, Detective Chen testified. She was an active participant who helped them refine their methods for targeting other military families. When the verdicts came down, the justice was swift and comprehensive. Mom was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for fraud, forgery, and racketeering. Marcus received 3 years for his role as an accessory. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert each received 18 months for conspiracy. But beyond the criminal convictions, the civil settlements were equally satisfying. The court ordered full restitution of my stolen inheritance, including the house, plus damages and interest on the deployment money they had stolen. The total settlement was more than $300,000. The house was officially transferred back to me within 30 days. Walking through those familiar rooms where I had spent so many childhood summers with Grandma Eleanor felt like stepping back into a life that had been stolen and then returned with interest. But the most meaningful moment came when I found a letter hidden in Grandma Eleanor's bedroom closet, one that Margaret had not known about. It was addressed to me and dated just 2 days before her death. My dearest Serafina, it read, by the time you read this, I will be gone, and I suspect Sarah will have tried to steal what I intended for you. But I want you to know that this house represents more than just property. It represents the strength and integrity that you have always possessed. I am not leaving you this house because you are my granddaughter. I am leaving it to you because you are the person who will use it to build something meaningful and lasting. You will fill these rooms with love and laughter and purpose the way they were meant to be filled. Whatever your mother tries to take from you, she cannot take your character, your courage, or your capacity for justice. Fight for what is right, not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you. The letter ended with a promise that proved prophetic. Justice delayed is not justice denied. Truth has a way of emerging when the time is right. I believe in you, and I believe that you will not only survive this betrayal, but that you will use it to become even stronger. 6 months later, I had transformed Grandma Eleanor's house into something she would have been proud of. I turned the first floor into a resource center for military families dealing with financial fraud and legal issues. Detective Chen helped me connect with other victims of inheritance theft, and together we built a support network that has now helped dozens of families recover stolen assets. David and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. He had been genuinely victimized by the same criminal network, and his guilt about being manipulated had been part of their strategy all along. He now volunteers his forensic accounting skills to help other military families identify financial fraud before it destroys their lives. Margaret Williams became like a second grandmother to me. She helped me plant a garden in Grandma Eleanor's backyard, where we grow sunflowers every spring, just like Grandma Eleanor and I used to do. The criminal network that targeted military families was completely dismantled. Federal prosecutors used our case as the foundation for prosecuting similar schemes across the country. The investigation ultimately led to 43 convictions and the recovery of more than $12 million in stolen military family assets. Mom writes me letters from prison sometimes, still trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty for destroying the family. But I have learned the difference between family and chosen family, between loyalty and enabling criminal behavior. Real family does not steal from you while you serve your country. Real family does not forge documents to rob you of your inheritance. Real family does not target you for being honorable instead of convenient. My chosen family now includes Margaret David Detective Chen and dozens of other military families who understand that justice is not about revenge. It is about making sure that criminal behavior has real consequences and that good people do not suffer in silence. Every night when I lock the doors of Grandma Eleanor's house, my house now, I remember her final words to me. Truth has a way of emerging when the time is right. She was right about everything. Justice was delayed, but it was not denied. And sometimes the family that matters most is the one that stands up for what is right when everything falls apart. Now, I want to hear from all of you who have been through similar family betrayals. Have you ever discovered that people you trusted were working against you behind your scenes? How did you find the strength to fight for justice when everyone around you was telling you to just accept the betrayal and move on? Share your stories in the comments below, because I know many of you have faced impossible family situations that required incredible courage to overcome. If this story of family karma and justice served cold resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about fighting back against betrayal. Share this with anyone who needs to know that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who taught us how to be strong. Thank you for taking this journey with me, and remember that your worth is not determined by how your family treats you, but by how you choose to treat yourself and others when facing impossible circumstances. Justice may be delayed, but it always finds a way to emerge when truth and courage meet at exactly the right moment.